Hello everyone, and welcome to our next section for the finance chapter. And today we're going to talk about personal finance and working with a budget. Now let's talk about what is a budget. You're basically keeping track of how much money you have coming in and going out, and then deciding what adjustments you need to make. And one of the things we'll look at is cash flow. Now cash flow is the total income minus your total expenses. So we're going to take our total income minus whatever our expenses are, and that tells us at the end what our cash flow would be. Now here's a 4-step budget making process. 1, determine your average monthly income. Right, include every type of income you might be receiving, even once a year payments you might get. Step 2, determine your average monthly expenses. This includes even things such as gas or vacations you're going to take. Step 3, determine your net monthly cash flow. So how much are you bringing in, but after taxes? Step 4, make adjustments as needed. Let's go into our first example. Now, it says, Calvin isn't rich, but he gets by, and he loves sitting down for a latte at the college coffee shop. With tax and tip, he usually spends $5 on his large latte. He gets at least one a day on average, and about every 3 days he'll have a second one. He figures it's not such a big indulgence, is it? Assuming Calvin's monthly rent is $1,100, how many months' rent could he pay with his annual latte expenditures? All right, so we're asking to figure out, is it really a big deal or not for his spending? Let's talk about first the lattes bought each year. Because we know that he has roughly one a day. We're not going to worry about the every few days when he splurges on another one. But on average, he has 365 lattes, right? It's one per day. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's do the other one too, because we want to make sure we get an accurate amount. So let's go ahead and add. We're going to keep going. It does say every 3 days he buys another one. What we could do with that is just take 365 divided by 3. Because remember, that's the second latte every 3 days. And what we get is 365 plus 121, which I'm glad we did that because it turns out to be a lot. So the lattes bought each year would be 486 lattes. Now let's do our next step. I'll change color just to break up our steps. So that was like step 1. Next step. What is the total cost? All right, well, that was just how many lattes he drinks. It's 486 lattes, but remember, he spends $5 on each one. 486 times 5, and we get $2,430 that is spent per year on the lattes. Well, now let's talk about this. Rent is $1,100, right? That's what it said, $1,100 per month. And so we have, let's take the total cost, $2,430 divided by the rent. Because what this is going to give us is how much rent he could pay with that latte expense. This comes out to be 2.2, meaning our conclusion would be he could pay just over 2 months rent with the latte. So if he stopped paying for those lattes every day, he actually could come up with just about 2 months of rent for that whole year. So your question that you want to think about is this expense worth it? Here's another question for you to think about. How much could he end up saving then in 10 years? So if you think about what he spends right here, think about what he would save in 10 years. Just something to think about. All right, example 2. We have, this is a chart. Now, let me explain what this chart is showing you. Let me see if I can move up just a little bit. All right. What we're looking at here on the left-hand column is the person's income. Now, there's going to be problems sometimes where you're going to have a couple of different incomes, where you might have not just a salary, but maybe there's a bonus or there's other things. We're going to count all of that. In this problem, we just have one salary and it's $2,200 a month. To the right are all of the monthly, well, no, actually yearly expenses, because I'm seeing that some are a month, some are a week, some are semi-annual. That means 2 times a year. And we're going to look at what is the net monthly cash flow. Okay, here's what we have to do. First, okay, step 1, we have to look at the total expenses. And it says monthly. That means we're going to have to be careful when we break this down. I'm just going to go in order from the top down to the bottom so we don't miss anything. So I'm going to start off with the rent. That is $780 a month. So $780, and that's already by a month. That's what we want. Plus, now the groceries is $100 per week. So we're going to assume 4 weeks in a month. That would be 100 times 4 to, remember, we're averaging monthly. Next expense is utilities. That's $130 a month. That's okay. No adjustments needed there. However, health insurance is $370 semi-annually. That means he's paying it every 6 months. If we want to break that down by month, we're going to take $370 divided by 6. That would break it down to what he's paying per month. Then we have car insurance semi-annually. So again, divide by 6 because it's every 6 months. Next, we have gasoline. That's $45 per week. So that's going to be 45 times 4. Miscellaneous is $470. And I ran out of room. And then I'll put the phone down here. That's $100 per month. What you want to do is add all of this up. And you can just put this right into your calculator. But you're going to do all of these numbers, add them together to get what the total monthly expense is. And do this with me. If you want to pause the video while you're entering this in the calculator, just so you can check to make sure that you are getting the correct answer, we should get $2,203. So $2,203. But we're not done yet. The next question was, well, what is the cash flow? Remember in the beginning of our video, we said that cash flow is your income minus expenses. The income is $2,200 a month. Now, there's going to be problems where you're going to be given more. You're going to be given bonuses or other income that they're getting. You're going to take all of that and figure out what is the average income per month. So average everything. Now, but this one we only had one. Minus the expenses that we just came up with. And when we subtract these, we get -$3. In other words, what this is telling us is that we actually have a negative cash flow. Our expenses are more than our income. This is where you would pause, make adjustments to your expenses. Either increase the income. If you can't do that, then maybe try cutting down on some of the expenses. But this is showing a negative cash flow. Ultimately, you want a positive cash flow. Let's try another example. Most people work full-time for at least 40 years, not 40 hours, that it would be full-time though, 40 years during their careers. In 2020, the average median salary for a full-time worker aged 25 or older who was a college graduate with a bachelor's degree or higher was about $73,600 per year, while the average median salary for a full-time worker with only a high school diploma was about $41,000 per year. Based on this data, how much more does the average college graduate earn over a 40-year career? All right, let's talk about this. Step 1. We need to look at the difference in the median income. The difference in median income, well, that would be what they're telling us you would make with the bachelor's minus without. Subtract those two and we get 32,000. Oh, I just made it. 32,600. So the first thing we want to do is find the difference then, because they're asking us how much more is the average college graduate making over a 40-year period. So that would be the first step, because we want to calculate we want to look at the difference. Now, over a 40-year period, that means we're going to take the difference, which is 32,600, but times 40 years, because we want to know how much more are they actually making over that 40-year time. And this is averaging. We'll multiply those two numbers together and we get $1,300,000. So that is the difference between, according to the statistics, and that would be over a 40-year working period. Let's talk about insurance costs. Now, I'm not going to read through this whole thing. You can read through this on your own. But basically, when we're talking about insurance costs, there's more than just what you pay for insurance every month. There is the cost, yes, of your premium. But then a lot of insurance companies have what's called a deductible or a copay. And typically, if you go to a doctor's visit, you pay a copay for that visit. But then you also have a deductible that needs to be met each year. In other words, insurance costs is not just what you're paying. It's what you're paying throughout the year out of pocket for everything, even prescriptions. I'm going to show you, this is our last example, but I want to show you here's an example where we have a table of different types of expenses with insurance. This is Plan A. You have your monthly premium, what is the deductible, and what each of your copays are. Then you have Plan B with its own monthly premium, deductible, and copayments. What we're looking at over here are what was spent during this year with the insurance, medical bills, medical visits. These are the total costs. Here's what the question is. We want to know which plan would have been the better plan to use if there was a better plan, or would it have been cheaper to not even have used the insurance? And everything is different. This is just one example. First question, we want to determine the health care expenses if the family chose Plan A. All right, Plan A, we're looking at a few things. Okay, let me explain how this is going to work. We're going to look at what these costs were, but if we use the insurance, what would they have paid? And I'm going to just go right in order from January down to September. Looking at January, they had an emergency room visit. That would have been the cost without insurance, by the way. I go over to Plan A, and it says the emergency room is just a copay of, it said $270. And how many emergency room visits did they have? They had 2 of them. All right, so I'm starting off with the emergency room visit. The emergency room with Plan A, the copay is $270, and they visited 2 times. Okay. Now I go to the office visit. They had an office visit. I go to Plan A. The office visit was $45. How many office visits did they have? They had 2. Go ahead and, I don't want to just go in order, but if we can do a couple at a time, that's what we'll do. So we have $45 copay times 2 of those visits. Then we had surgery. Now, if I look over here, we have an annual deductible of $5,000. All right, that means that's what the surgery, so with surgery, the deductible would be paid first. Anything else the insurance would pay. Go over here and look at surgery. We had 2 surgeries. They were over $5,000. So that means the $5,000 would have been paid first. That's the deductible for the surgeries. All right, do we have anything left? Oh yeah, the premium, we're paying $400 every month. Can't forget that. So I almost forgot about that one. These are all of your costs. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing one. So we have 400 times 12. We got the 5,000, 45 times 2. And then, oh, I almost forgot. Surgical co-payments. That's $250, and there were 2 surgeries. I knew I was missing something here. There we go. Now we have it all. So we have the surgery co-payment and also the deductible. That's 2 things we had to include there. Anyway, add all of these up, and we get $10,930 is what would have been paid out of pocket with Plan A. Now let's go to Plan B. Okay, in this particular plan, we had, again, we have the emergency room visits, but actually let's start with the premium because I keep forgetting that one. The premium is $880 a month. That's times 12. I'm going to start with that. Then, do we have a deductible? Yes, the deductible is $1,100. Surgery is well over that, so we are going to meet the deductible. We're going to pay that. And by the way, it does not matter what order you do this in, just as long as we get it all. As you see, I almost forgot one last time. Then we have emergency room visits. Now we had 2 emergency room visits, and with this plan, that's a copay of $170. 170 times 2. Then we had 2 office visits. That copay is $45. And do we have anything else? Surgical operation copayment. Ooh, none. So we're actually, I don't even have to put this, but I just want to show you, we don't have a copayment this time, so that would be $0. Add these together, and we get $12,090. Okay, $12,090. Now, the third question is this. It says, determine the healthcare expense, and I'll just show you, but I'm going to go back up. The last question is just determine the healthcare expense for the year if the family has no health insurance. In other words, let me go back up here. They paid for all of this out of pocket. In other words, this just added up, and that would tell us what they would have paid if they had no health insurance. So you add all of these together, and we get $10,620. Now think about this. Between the 2 insurance plans, it actually would have been cheaper for them in this case. By the way, every case is different, so don't think I'm saying don't have health insurance. In this particular case, it would have been cheaper for them to just pay out of pocket. But you're going to have other problems when you're working on this where it's not going to be that case. Anyway, that concludes this section of learning how to look at budgeting and expenses and cash flow.